Hello, everyone. Welcome to our brand new channel and podcast. This is Interstellar Chats with Carlene
and Kristen.
Just James.
And just James.
And
awesome.
James.
And James. So we are still figuring out all the tech, but we are here and we're here for it like big time. And today is all about dreams. Contact with ETs, and I think really we're going to dive into texture, right? Because texture really allows us to see or feel when a dream is just all kinds of stuff coming in that's not really, or maybe we're just filtering it out, or some kind of extraordinary, extraterrestrial, otherworldly contact. Right? So let's dive in. What do you think?
That. I like that. So here's an interesting thing that just happened this morning. Well, two things.
Tell us.
Well, between last night and this morning. So last night, my child and I started the Super Brain program from Jim Quick. And he talks about his morning routine. The very first thing he does is log his dreams. And I thought that was kind of interesting because he's the brain guy, right? And he's talking about memory, but his very first action in the morning is to log his dreams before he does anything else. That's number one, dream log.
That's awesome. And so for people who don't know yet about Jim Quick, he's the boy with the broken brain.
Yeah.
And he has just gone on to be a super inspirational guy who talks about how to get over limitations with your brain and become highly functioning, highly spiritual, highly, all the things, being able to super brain, right? That's really what it is.
So he couldn't do a lot of things. And so he started practicing different techniques in order to be able to function. And in the process of obsessing over that, he became amazing at it. And now he is a brain coach for pretty much anybody. But I mean, people who are huge.
How did his brain get broken?
He was in an accident and he suffered brain damage when he was, I think, like 6, I want to say 6 or 7. And then
honestly, I don't remember the catalyst. So
that was it. He told the story yesterday. And I don't remember all of it and this is why I'm taking his course, because I'm like, wait, what? That's, I want to be able to remember things more.
Yeah. And James, you may recall several years ago when I first came across Jim Quick, we were standing in this, like on the street, talking about how I had just been introduced to Jim Quick and all of his memory techniques for doing public speaking or being able to remember and walk yourself through a room or a pathway to trigger your brain. When you walk into this space, then you're going to remember this part of your talk or your speech or whatever. And he also, he has so many great
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah. So you can actually do a presentation without having notes because you're walking through each section that you've identified it with or attached it to a physical space.
Right.
Yeah. And then also he talks about being able to speed read and just all kinds of really amazing things. And he's phenomenal.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought, just coming back to our topic, I thought it was really interesting that the first thing he taught was write down your dreams.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Of all things, I wasn't really expecting that. I'm expecting, yes, when I look at my phone, I'm going to remember your name or whatever, techniques like that. But I didn't think he was going to start with dreams.
Logging your dreams.
Yeah. Log your dreams, because so much information comes at night. Truly. When you're sleeping. That's when, for a lot of people, that's when they get the most guidance. And then it's just, once you wake up, most of the time you forget your dream unless you're, trying to lucid dream or trying to remember it when you wake up. You're asking for information in your dreams. Then you might be aware enough to be like, oh yeah, that was a transmission. That wasn't just a random dream.
So what was your first dream that really made you feel like it was something more than just a dream?
Hmm.
I have to go all the way back to being a child, and it isn't even necessarily remembering actual dream time, like pictures, imagery, locations, that kind of thing, but more it was, this is really not even dream time. It was just a matter of being outside of my body and noticing the differences, that textural feeling, right? Because I was astral traveling,
Mhm.
and I was in what I thought at the time was an invisible car. But it was, now I know, my Merkaba, my energetic vehicle where you can do healing and travel and all the things. So at the time when I was a kid, I was just like, I can fly, you know,
Right.
and I would pull up on what I thought was like a steering wheel, and I would just pull up and I would just be flying everywhere. But then here's something interesting. I would also at the same time be very lucid to be like, oh my gosh, I'm flying. And then my 3D self would be like, oh my gosh, I'm flying. And then I would be all over the place, like out of control, unable to control the vehicle, and then slam down into my bed and grab the sides of the bed,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Like slamming into my body and be like, oh my gosh, you know, and
Wow.
wake up.
Yeah.
So was that dreaming or not? I think it's completely different than an actual dream, because I was
Yeah.
out astral traveling, but
Yeah.
it was during sleep time. But I know for now,
Yeah.
when I am dreaming and I wake up and I have this amazing experience, and I know that, you know, I can tell by, like I said, texture, whether or not it's filtering imagery from, you know, just stuff that happened the day before or what have you, to being talking with other people, or being in a different timeline, or contacting with, you know, connecting with ETs. I have the great, I don't know what it is, just good luck, good fortune to be able to turn over and wake my wife up and say, oh my gosh, you got to hear this. So instead of logging my dreams, I speak them out loud.
Yeah, that's nice.
You know, and honestly, I probably should just hit record on my phone and record what's happening, because it's amazing the things that are happening in our sleep time.
Yeah.
What about you, James?
It's very cool.
Well, when I was a child, I vividly remember I was in the fourth grade, and we had a peach tree that was in our backyard that I had planted. And my dream was, I woke up and I ran outside. I put my hands on the sliding glass door and slid it open, and go out into the backyard. And I just had so much wonder, because from night to the next day, all of a sudden, all the peach blossoms had opened. And I mean, it was just covered with blossoms. And then over on the side of the house, I saw that there was a baby bird and it had died. And I was so sad, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I woke up and the exact thing happened.
Oh,
That
wow.
exactly to the T that happened. And so for me, I felt like I was magic, because at the time, um, what was on TV was Bewitched and Genie. And I'm like, oh, I felt like I was magic, you know, and I thought that's what my dream life really was. But I've had many, many dreams that have come exactly true. And then I've had dreams that over time I look at and think, I think I was being contacted, and I think something was communicating with me. So, yeah, my dreams is where really everything started. I just thought I was magic.
You are magic. And I think that's amazing that some people have dreams that are premonitions. I haven't really experienced that. I travel and I have contact and I do all kinds of things in my dream time, but I don't necessarily have premonitions
Yeah.
that are exact like you're experiencing.
Well, and it's funny is because those are few, and I could probably say maybe 6 times, that has been like that. So it also caused a little fear in me too as a child, because if I had a bad dream, I was afraid it was going to come true.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I can see.
So
So this is a gift, right? It's a gift to be able to have such an amazing experience.
well, what's interesting is like I said, it doesn't happen all the time, and it can be years in between. But the most recent one was in McKinney, and I dreamt that I was walking my walk, going down the street, and I see this bright yellow and green bird, and it's free and it's outside. And I'm like, what are you doing? I said, well, hello. And so it stops and it turns and it looks at me. And we have a whole conversation, and it flies up onto my shoulder. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I had this whole conversation with this bird, and it flies away. Well, it wasn't the next day. I'd say maybe a week later, the exact same thing happened. It was such a miracle because I was right in front of a friend's house, and I'm on the street. I see the bird. It stops. It looks at me. I say, well, hello. And we have a whole conversation. It gets up onto my shoulder. I held on to it, hoping that I thought maybe it might belong to the house that was right in front of it. So I tried to take it up to the stairs, and it flew up into this big crepe myrtle tree. And I'm like, bye, I'll see you later. And so I start walking away, and it flies back. It flies back onto my shoulder. And I'm like, okay, well, I try to catch it again. And it did that probably 4 times. And then finally, it went up into the tree. I'm like, well, I'll see you later. Bye, Mr. Burroughs. That was so much fun. And I'm walking now. I've crossed the street, and I'm walking up the street, and it flies over to me again. And I'm like, this is just crazy. I just could not believe it. And so I kept trying to take it to the house that I thought it belonged at. Finally, it just flew up into the tree and was gone. But then I noticed that my friend actually had been sitting in their vehicle and saw the whole thing, because I thought there's no way in this world, nobody's going to believe this story. And so,
No, that's fabulous.
but my whole thought is, what does that mean? What is that supposed to prove?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It is very cool, but yeah, you have to wonder, like, why?
what's
What
the
is the point?
purpose?
What's the purpose, and what are we supposed to do with this information when we do get it? But
Right?
it's not always clear. You're like, okay, well, now what? What am I supposed to do with that here?
Mhm.
I think that for those of us like us who are aware and awake and actually able to have lucid dreaming and be able to move in and out of those textures of this is something way different than just filtering garbage from the day before, right? I think many more people are waking up to having these experiences, but it just goes to show that it's not just, it's like when we have dream time, we're also making it right here in the now, right? We're taking what's happened there and bringing it into reality in the 3D. Now, are you guys also having, now, James, obviously you are, because you just told us about the bird, but I also had an amazing experience with the bird, and you had some amazing
with birds. Yeah, I was just talking about my bird story this morning. I was sitting, this was back when I lived in El Segundo in LA. I had a tiny little garden next to my house, and I would go out there in the morning and sit. And I mean, it was tiny, and the airport was right next door, and but there was a lot of wildlife that came there because I think we invited it and we wanted that. So I was just sitting there one day, in the morning, it was probably like 7, 8. And I had my knees up. I had my knees up like this. And I was just kind of sitting like this. And from behind me, in flies this bird, and it sat on my knee. It stood, like it landed right here. And I was just like, and the bird heard me take a breath and looked at me and went, oh. We both went, and he or she went over to the fence, which was about 5 feet away, and just stood on the fence and just looked at me. And we were looking at each other like, did that just happen? Like, did I just land on you? And I'm like, did you just land on me? Yeah. And he sat there for a little while and we just kind of stared at each other.
It's amazing.
Right. And then that was it.
So birds, I think, are just so magical. And I think they try to tell us that we are magical, right? Because here's my little experience with a bird that just literally happened several months ago. Maybe 2 months ago. I don't remember exactly the time, but I was taking a walk. I was walking my dog, and he's a greyhound. So little creatures, I'm a little nervous that he might want to go after them, right? Because they're bred to chase little fast things, right? So I didn't want him to catch it or whatever. But anyway, I see this bird, and it's just sitting on top of a bush, like a bush that's maybe waist high or a little bit bigger. And it's like a whole hedge, right? So I'm walking past it and I go, oh, look at this little dove. It's so beautiful. But I'm getting close to it and I'm thinking, are you okay? Are you hurt? Is there something wrong? So I immediately start giving it energy. And I say, you just take whatever you need, whatever you want, whatever's good for you. And it just stays there. And stays there and stays there. So I'm there for maybe a minute or two, just communing with this bird, just like, you take whatever you want, just giving it all kinds of love, love, love. And then I said, okay, I'm going to go on my walk. And then I come back and there's actually, before I left, I noticed the partner to the bird is around, right? So the dove, I feel like his or her mate is there, right?
Yeah.
And just flying above, like making sure everything is okay. So I'm thinking, obviously this bird is hurt in some way or needs something. Maybe it was stunned or who knows what happened, right? So this other bird is obviously protecting it, but also knows that I'm not going to hurt it. So anyway, I leave, and later that evening, like completely hours in between these two walks, I'm now walking with my wife. We're just taking a walk, and we go past. I said, I got to tell you what happened over here. There was this bird, and the bird is still there.
Oh, wow.
Or came back. So I said, oh my gosh, I have to go talk to this bird. So I go up to the bird, and now this time Rita is there as witness to what's happening. So I get up real close and I pet the bird. Like I'm literally just from the head back to its wings, just petting it on its back. And she's letting me.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is amazing. And Rita's like, do you think she's hurt? Do we have to take her somewhere? I'm like, I think she's okay. She's getting what she needs right now. And then I said, if we come back and she's still here, maybe we'll see if she needs medical attention. So anyway, we come on our way back, and we took a pretty long walk, and we came back, and Rita's like, she's like, I think I'm going to go around the building, because she didn't want to know if anything bad had happened to the bird. So I said, well, I'm just going to go back over and check. And anyway, she was gone. And then I haven't seen the bird since, but obviously she got what she needed. And it was magical.
Yeah.
Well, all of that means something, what kind of bird it was. When you see a bird or a butterfly or anything, it means something. And I have this incredible book here. It's called Animals Speak. This book.
Oh, nice.
And you just look inside the book, and it'll tell you what it means if a yellow butterfly lands on you, or if you see a red bird, a cardinal. So it's interesting. What kind of birds was it that landed on you?
It was a blackbird, but it was not a crow. And I was thinking about this this morning, actually. It wasn't, I want to say maybe it was a grackle. They had a long tail, right?
Possibly.
And a dark, almost black, but when the tail spreads out underneath, it's got like white.
Oh, wow.
So I think maybe it's a grackle. It wasn't a starling, because starlings are black and then they have that little brown speckles, and they're a little bit smaller. This was a pretty big bird. We've had a bunch of bird interactions. We just found, well, Pierce found a fledgling hawk
Really?
down the street.
Wow.
Yeah. And he wasn't sure if it was hurt. So we didn't know it was a fledgling. And the last time I saw a bird on the ground, it was a baby crow. And I didn't really try to catch it. And like, the parents will take care of it. And in the morning it was dead.
Oh.
So I felt really bad, because I always wanted a pet crow. And I could have saved that one and made it my pet. But so we saw this, he saw the hawk. So we went and we didn't know it was a hawk. But wow, that is a fearsome creature. And that was a baby.
Wow.
Yeah, he was pretty treacherous. Just the eyes and the claws were just magnificent. But it was interesting to look at him and see, like, we actually called somebody from rescue just to check him. And she said that it was a fledgling and the parents are probably up in the tree. So when you were telling me your bird story, I was thinking it could have been a fledgling, because they look like adults, but they haven't, they're still
learning to fly.
Yeah, they're like teenagers. So the parent will be like hopping around, but they haven't really, they're not sure about the wings quite yet.
Got it, yeah.
Right.
So just yesterday, where I live, I live next to a lake, and there's a big water tower, and there's tons of wild green parrots that live in and around that water tower. And I was walking my greyhound again, and right on the ground, I almost literally stepped on it. It was so close. There's this little green parrot with his little yellow beak, just right on, right on the ground on the curb. And I was like, what are you doing here? Just kind of talking. And I was like, I hope you're doing okay. And he just kind of looks at me, and he gives me that kind of, I don't know, just kind of a look like, I'm not sure about you and I don't want anything to do with you. So I just was like, okay, I don't think you actually need anything. So I was just like, hi and bye real quick. And he just kind of hopped away. He didn't fly, but he was just hopped away. So I'm like, okay, bye, parrot.
Right.
But there was a lot of screeching and stuff going on in the big giant nests on the water tower. So I was like, maybe he's just getting away from the noise.
Maybe, or maybe he got kicked out of the nest. He could have been a little fledgling too. So one of the things that the rescue woman told me, which I think is really interesting, and I had never heard before, is that it is completely untrue that if you touch a baby bird, the parent will disown it.
That's good information.
Yes. She said birds don't have that great of a sense of smell. They would never detect that. So if you see a baby, you could place it back in the nest and the parent would be grateful.
Wow. Well, that's good, because I was petting that dove.
Yeah.
Literally petting the dove.
Right. Right. And though, I mean, we had the hawk here, and she put a glove over his face and just inspected his wings. And it was really beautiful, because he still had some of his baby fluff, but you could see the way the feather was wound up in like this tube, and it was unfurling.
Wow.
It was pretty magnificent.
That is so cool.
That was definitely the closest I've ever been to a bird, like a predator bird. And their talons are insane. I mean, he grabbed onto my hand, and I was like, oh,
Wow, strong, right?
Oh, strong. And I was like, maybe you could just let go. And I grabbed his little leg and I pulled it. And as soon as I pulled it, he just dug in. And I was like, oh yeah, you're vicious. You are in. Yeah.
So when I started in with learning energy medicine 20 plus years ago, for the first probably 4 to 6 years, I would have owls around me. Like
was just
they
thinking
were, the
owls.
owls were there when, I mean, they were there when I was a kid, always had owls around me. Still occasionally I have owls around me, but especially during this time. And I feel like it was like my time of initiation, maybe when I was getting into energy medicine and really the practice. I would not only have one owl, I would have two owls around me at a time. So they
Wow.
would always come in pairs. And they would just be random and not the same type of owls either, like different types of owls.
It's interesting.
And I'd be like, "Well, do you see this? There's two owls right there." And it was just, and they're just looking at me and blinky, and I'm just like, wow, look at this. And to have other people around and experience it with you. Of course, I had many experiences where it's just me and the owls, but to have other people around and be like, wow, you're kind of magical. Like there's always these owls.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that we're talking about dreams and then we got off on this bird tangent because like one of the things that we do in our dreams is fly.
Truly.
Right? You were talking about flying
Yeah.
and like the birds are flying. So there's
I still have never had an easy landing with my phone.
Yeah.
I always have to look for trees, like a big tree, and then think I can like go
Yeah.
land into that.
Yeah, I don't fly very often in my dreams, but when I do, it's pretty amazing.
So do you fly inside a vehicle or outside a vehicle?
I don't think I'm leaving my body at all. I think I'm literally just dreaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, James? What is the texture and the feel when you're flying? Do you feel like you're in something protective, or are you just out like Superman?
I feel like it's me. I had this really incredible dream when I was in high school, and I had a friend, and she lived in town, and I lived out in the country. And I left my house, and it was at night, and I flew to her house, and I could see what it would look like from the aerial view going to her house. And I flew to her second story window and tapped on her window. And she came to the door, to the window. And the next day, she told me she had a dream where I came to her window.
And tapped on the window.
And I came to her to the window.
That's amazing.
So, and then I vividly remember going back home, and I did get stuck a little bit on some electrical wires. And for some reason, I couldn't get off of them. And so I had to follow them for a way. And then finally, I got off of them. And I got back home, and I saw my body laying right there, and I laid down.
Wow.
Yeah, so that sounds to me like you left your body and did some things.
Maybe.
Right?
I guess, I don't know. Or
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know that's what happened. And I think it was very interesting that she had, a dream as well. So
Yes.
So I want to get back to the texture
Yes.
of a dream.
That's what I was just thinking.
And talk about that for a little bit, because for me, I can absolutely tell the difference when I am having a dream that is filtering information or imagery from the day, the last week, a movie that I saw the night before, something that happened right before bed, and it seeps into dream time, right? And that just feels like processing stuff, right? Just leftover stuff from the day. But then I can literally feel the difference when I'm having what we call a dream, but really is a multidimensional experience. And, I used to, or I still call it my in-between time, right? When I'm in between sleep and not being asleep. But this usually always happens like dead on asleep, not my in-between sleep where I'm very, very lucid, but deep into sleep and out of my body,
Yeah.
literally. And just recently, probably within the last couple years, not only am I having experiences in different timelines and going to different places, but I'm leaving the planet.
Mm.
I had an experience where I was on Mars. And if you don't know this, there are people on Mars. It is not just a robot looking around at the desolate dirt and red dirt and whatever. However, the planet is very dangerous, right? The atmosphere, you can't live on it because there at one time you could, but it is at a place now where you can't live on it. It
Humans
is
can't.
human, well, even extraterrestrials. They're underground and they're in some kind of protective structure.
Okay.
And this dream slash experience, multidimensional experience where I was on Mars was, we were under this dome-like structure and there was a lot of humans. And I did not see any extraterrestrials, or at least I didn't perceive them to be extraterrestrial, but human. And there was someone who was definitely kind of like in a leadership role, or someone who was trying to direct people. And he was very frenetic, just his energy was all over the place. Like he couldn't get things to happen. And he was very like, I don't know if he was angry, scared, anxious, just like his energy was all over the place. And I remember following this crowd, this throng of people, right? And just going off into one section and then moving like the whole like big throng of people moving as one mass moving. And it was not a lot of information that came through when I was there, but just, I remember when I woke up and I was telling Rita, I'm like, hey, I was on Mars, you gotta listen to this. And I tell her these things so that I remember.
Right.
And then what happens is throughout the day, more information seeps through, or more clarity, more focus on what actually happened when I was off planet. And come to find out that, yes, I was on Mars, but the bad ETs that have since been expelled from our solar system, and I'm going to say this a lot because I want people, brand new viewers that are watching, to know there are no bad ETs around us anymore. But you may still have experiences where that energy or that texture of being scared might be there, and we just have to work through it, right? And know that we are safe and we are protected. But there was definitely that energy of being very frenetic and being like not able to use your own free will to do things. And I've since found out that humans from Earth have been, for hundreds of years, been taken as slaves, if you will, to do work on Mars as, you know, basically just go do the job we're telling you to do by these bad ETs, and then they would bring you back. And you would have no recollection or memory that you were being used as slave labor. Yeah.
I've had a couple of dreams that I'm pretty sure I was on Mars and I'm working outside a red planet. I have gear on me and I am doing.
You're in a suit, you're saying, like you have gear?
I have some sort of suit on. I notice, I don't know if it's protective or not, but I can see that that's on me, and I am have some tools in my hand, and I'm working on some machinery that's outside.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So that was
Interesting.
another thing that I had found out about Mars, and I think that this is why that one guy who was in the leadership role had a very frenetic, very anxious, scared energy about him, was because when you didn't do your job or didn't do what you were told, these bad ETs just took you and threw you outside and you would immediately die because you couldn't handle the
atmosphere.
toxic atmosphere. And that was the consequence for not following directions or not completing the task as a slave, because you had no free will there, right? So it was like they mind controlled you or something, or.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
So I haven't had a lot of prophetic dreams or synchronistic things happen, like when you tapped on your friend's window, or premonitions like birds and stuff. But I have had a couple where, they're the texture, back to the texture.
Mhm.
So I've had this one dream forever since I was a kid. It's always the same. The environment could be different. The places are different, but the idea of it is exactly the same. And it is, I'm in a crowd of people, and we are all tasked with sort of running this course, whatever it is. So everybody's walking, and we're walking up this mountain, and there's a big path, and we're all walking up the mountain. I'm like, okay, we're walking up the mountain, and we have to walk up the mountain for whatever
Mhm.
reason. The way starts getting narrower and narrower, and it starts getting more and more treacherous. And everybody around me is passing me, and they're just going faster. They're climbing higher. Somehow they're climbing vertical walls up this mountain that's slippery, and there's no handholds. And I'm like,
Right? How are you doing that?
I can't do this. And I'm watching them, and I start getting filled with this, like, no, I can't do this. I'm not doing this. And why can I not do this?
Mhm.
And everybody's passing me. And it'll be other things like being in a house, and we're at a party, and we're going from room to room, and then everybody's in this room over here, and there's a door, and the door keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and people are just running through the door. They're like, come on, Kristen, let's go. And they're getting smaller and smaller to fit through the door. And like, I can't fit through that door. Like, how are they shrinking?
Mhm.
How are they doing that? Or, picking up boulders, and everybody's picking up these huge boulders, and they're little people picking up these big boulders. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, how are they doing that? It's almost the same all the time. And there's always a sense of almost like a race.
Mhm. Yes.
And that is a recurring dream since I was a kid.
I have a recurring dream
I've
also.
had it my whole life. And I wake up, and I just get like, I wake up with anxiety.
For sure.
So the difference between that dream and when I have a dream that is clearly a communication, like I remember this one, I pulled up in a car, and it was like this, like a Tudor style house, I want to say, with like a slate roof, and it was beautiful. Like a stucco outside, very antique English country looking.
Mhm.
And I opened the door, it was glass, and I went in, and there was a table, and there were a few people in there, and Pierce was with me. And I remember just saying, Pierce, just sit at the table and don't move, to just stay there. And I started talking to the people there, and I started to get this sense like, this is unfriendly.
Mhm.
And I looked at Pierce, and I said, you go back to the car and lock the door.
Mhm.
And they took me to another room, and were sort of communicating some things to me. And I don't remember what they were. They were cooking. They offered me a cup of tea, which I had.
Mhm.
They were friendly enough, but it was not a party.
Mhm.
It was very dense and serious.
This is really, really important, because you're pointing out that you're having a dream, yet you're still able to use your discernment,
right.
right? And that's really important, because as we get more into these multidimensional experiences where dreams are becoming reality and reality is dream, right? We're in these different densities, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still need to be fully aware of our sovereign being, our individuality, and the fact that we can use discernment.
Right.
And even just being able to say, Pierce, you stay there, or you go to the car.
Yeah.
That's really, really important.
Yeah.
So
The
kudos.
difference between that dream and I would say my recurring dream, like the scenes would change so fast.
Mm.
I'd be like traveling through like, oh, we're in a mountain. Oh, we're on a train. Oh, we're going down a roller coaster. Oh, whoa, we're at a party. We're in this room. We're going over here. And it's, you know, it was a crazy race, which makes it hard for me to describe.
Mhm.
But this particular one with the house, we were in the house. We were walking through that house. The people in there didn't change. And there were like 3 people. One of them was making the tea, one was sitting at the table, one was by the fire, and they were just sort of communicating to me. And it felt very, very different. It had a texture.
Mhm.
It had a I don't even know what to call it. It's a feeling.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So for me, I've had 2 dreams that have been a reoccurring dream, and it is a feeling. It's for me, it's a feeling of excitement, which is very different from what we were talking about when I was seeing the light body being. I felt neutrality, but in my dream, I felt very excited inside, and I could feel it. And I'm like, oh, I'm having the dream. I'm going to have the dream again. And ever since I was a kid, I had this dream where I'd be playing on the playground and at my elementary school, and this big Spanish galleon um, lands with clouds around it, lands in the playground. And I never really remember the dream until after, for some reason. Like when I'm in my dream state and it's happening, I'm thinking, oh, I'm having that dream again. But I don't always remember it when I'm not dreaming. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Um, so I've had a couple of dreams like that, and my other one, I would see this house when I was a little kid. I would wake up and I'd go to my closet where all my toys and everything were at, and up there on the top shelf, I could see it and be like peeking out. I'd get up and bring down this house. And I played with this house for the longest time. And then I'd go and I'd put it away and I'd go back to bed. And I did that for the longest time. For years, I would dream about this house. And then as I got older, I would go to the house. I would be inside the house at like an adult. And it this dream happened for years and years and years. And then finally, I went on a birthday. It was my birthday, and when my friends took me to this old bed and breakfast in Llano, and it's a super, super old building. And the second I was on the path going to go up to this house, I knew where I was at. I had this feeling so deep inside me. I was like, okay, I know this place. And that was the house that I had been playing with forever. What? No,
Wow.
I don't even know how to even explain it. In some of the other dreams, the room that I stayed at, it was a girl's room initially, and it was all done in pinks, and she had some dolls and things, and I would play with her sometimes, also in my dream. But
Mm.
anyways, so it was so cool to get to see that. But after that happened, I've never had that dream again.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So you guys, this recurring dream that I had when I was a kid, it happened for years and years, and then it abruptly stopped. But it was one of those dreams like you were talking about, where you're being just kind of there's a path or something you're trying to follow. Either you're being chased or you're being told to go and, whatever. For me, I was being chased, but this was inside my grandparents' house. So they lived in this, I loved their house growing up, right? Because it was this split level house. So you walk in the front door and you walk into the foyer and you either go upstairs or you go downstairs, right? So that's the split level. So when you go downstairs, it was not a fully finished out or renovated downstairs. So when you walked down there, you could go from the stairs, walk straight, and then to the left and keep going left through one room, through the next room, then the laundry, and then you could come back. And if you turned really, really sharp, like a U-turn right, you could go back up the stairs, right? So if you imagine you're going in a circle, right? So I would be stuck going left through the rooms, being chased by a T-Rex. Ooh, by a T-Rex. Okay. So for years I had this dream, and I would always wake up with a start, like, I just can't get away. Like my sisters and brothers would be there, and other people, my grandparents, my mom, and I could hear them on the steps just saying, just turn right and come up the stairs, just turn right, instead of keep going, right? Because they all were able to turn right. I couldn't turn right, but they were all able to go and turn and get up the stairs and get away from T-Rex. Everyone else could get away. However, I could not get away. I know, right?
Yes.
But did you have like now that I think about it as an adult and I know about ETs and the bad ETs or the negative dark ETs and the good ones, I mean, was this a Draco?
I
Well,
was
that's-
actually being chased.
Was I actually being chased by an alien?
And that kind of is my question about this recurring dream, because it's so intense and anxiety filled that
anxiety.
And sometimes, there's another one where I'm in the city and it has multiple buildings, like islands of buildings. And there's a train that runs through, and I'm trying to get to a certain location outside of the city. But I have to go get a ticket, and I'm getting directions. The directions are always like, I get to one place and they give me the ticket and I go there, but that's not the place. I'm in the wrong place again. And so I ask directions over there and they say, oh yeah, you have to take this train one stop north. I take that train one stop north, cross over the bridge, take that train to the south. I'm trying to get somewhere and I can never get there. And there's like this urgency of I'm going to miss my appointment, whatever that is. I don't know, but there's always like this treachery behind it. And I started to wonder, like, is this just like a psychic attack?
That's what I was just about to get to. Like, do we think that during these episodes that it is some kind of a psychic attack, or whomever these entities were or are knew that we were fully aware and awake and lucid during this time and coming after us, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what if those bad dreams are an easier way to clear karma?
Oh, very interesting.
Explain, James.
Well, I mean, it just seems like since we think that dreams are reality, then why would it not count?
Yeah, I'm going to say it counts. So
I do too.
From here, I'm going to ask our lovely listeners, what do you think? Are you having these recurring dreams, or dreams where you can feel texturally different, where when you wake up, that was real and not just filtering information from the movie you watched the night before? So tell us in the comments below, give us some information and interact with us, and we'll look at the comments and we'll bring them up on our next episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So we
I
really
want to
want
hear more.
We want to have a conversation with you, not just us. We love talking with us, right? But we want to talk with you as well. So drop down some comments, questions, and we'll bring them up on our next episodes and work them in. And we'll even at some point have guests on here. But for now, I think it's been about an hour, so we're gonna close it here and just say Follow us on all the channels. We're going to try to be out there as much as possible, but we just want to thank you for tuning in and joining us on Interstellar Chats.
Interstellar chats.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.